Hello class, we have been looking at the preliminaries of Excel. Today is yet another tutorial about Excel, and we shall be learning about cells, or we can call our topic to say understanding cells. And in here we are saying that majorly how you would define a cell would be that a cell is the intersection of a row and a column, and we realized in the previous lectures that columns begin with letters A, B, C, D and so on. Those would be columns. Then these would be rows that begin with numbers. So when we have an intersection of a row and a column, that will make up a cell. So currently last time we looked at what a cell box is, or a name box. So we can now say that this is cell A1, whereas something like this would be cell E6. The advantage is that even when you've not realized that this name box exists, you can easily get these, because this will be highlighted and this also will be highlighted, both having a green border. That way you will understand the cell that you are in. But besides that, this alone will have its own green border by default. You could go to the options and change those colors if you wanted. So majorly that is what we mean by a cell, and we are sure you can select more than one cell. You could use many different ways of selecting. I could highlight like this. These would be the cells. Okay. You could also do something like this. You are trying to highlight, they are reading the start of the cell, but there is something we call a cell range, and we shall use it when we come to simple calculations. But for the start, we could highlight up to here, and this is what this would mean. For example, if assuming we wanted to write a formula that we are saying A equals, we want to put a sum here, and then we can say A1 up to A8. This is what we call a cell range. So it is going to pick information, or it is going to add information that is between A1 and A8, whereby those columns are also inclusive. So this is what we mean by a cell range, and we are going to see it more often when we start dealing with calculations. You can see we've looked at how you can highlight. You can highlight using arrow keys and the shift button, pressing the shift and then moving to the direction you want. By that we mean you could click there and then highlight. I'm using arrow keys now to highlight in a crossword format. I can go downwards like this. So all that is one way of highlighting. There are other ways that we shall see as we go on, and then we keep understanding. So we can say that we have what we call cell content, and any information you enter into a spreadsheet will be stored in a cell. Each cell can contain different types of content, including text or formatting, formulas and functions. We shall look at all that, and we are saying text can be numbers, can be letters, can be dates. If you have just numbers, or by simply saying date, this could be cells, this could be maybe percent. So if you have just a date, like maybe 10th of say August 2021, that would be a date. Maybe these cells here, you can just double click on this to expand this one, including this one here. So here it could be 65, maybe they can be tons or just 65 pieces. Once then you get to know what the total is, maybe this is 65, we have another number as 70, we have this as 80, then we have got the total here. We can just sum up this. So this is now a formula or a function. You can see it here, fx. This would be for functions or insert function, and like we had seen, you can either type the function here or type it here. As long as you clicked where you wanted the function to be inserted, the function will insert itself there. So here then you could calculate percentages basing on the total and one of these cells, and then get percentage contribution of each person or of that day that was made. Cells can also be formatted in a number of ways. You could, for example, change a background color. You could come here and say I want this maybe background color to be yellow, but then if it is yellow, I want my word maybe to be in blue. All this would be done at your desire. You can come here on more colors and activate more colors. Then you could choose to say that maybe these could be done differently. You can format it as a table, and then it would look like this. We shall talk about this function because you can activate it differently when it's taking our tables. Could just do it like this. We come here, we format it as a table to give us more cool options of the table, like the way the table appears in Word. Then I could come there and change quite a lot. Maybe you want the color now to be white. You could come here and only change the colors of this. Maybe you want this color now, that can bring out a different one, that is gold. Whatever you are trying to do, that will be your choice of coloring. So now we are looking at it as a table. We could have just created backgrounds of a single cell using this fill color. Maybe that is blue, and we are saying that whatever you type in there goes back to a little bit of gray. And if it is a date, then you could type in maybe 21st / August / 2021. So that is concerning formatting of cells. There are other things. We've inserted content, we've inserted you could want to delete. You can just click inside there and press delete. It will go away, but all this will remain. So if you wanted to delete, for example, all that, you could right click and then say delete. It is asking you whether to shift the cells left, which is not good. In most cases, maybe you want to delete the entire row. In most cases, you will be dealing with either the entire row or the entire column. When you say shift cells left, we can say okay, and we see what that happens, or how that will come about. We could also say delete, and then we say entire row, okay, and then everything together, the data and the background is completely deleted. You could as well choose to insert these. You can choose to insert, for example, and this with something that is also nice. Assuming you were here but you wanted to insert only one line, for example, you could right click, or you could come here and say insert sheet rows. So it is inserting it up by default. So if I wanted it to be between this and this, I would go to the row 1. I could right click here also and then say insert table rows above, table columns to the left. I want table rows, so one row is inserted. That is why this is moving downwards. So I have a row between this and this, assuming I had forgotten someone or a date here or a value here, then I don't have to delete everything. I just highlight a row below that row that I want inserted, then I can now say insert, and my information will be inserted. I can as well that is inserting. Deleting would be the same thing. Right click and delete, or come here and say delete sheet rows, and the row will be deleted because it was highlighted. Another thing about formatting of these cells, you could come here just like in Word. You say I want to change this to bookman web style. In the first tutorial I showed you how you can make your default settings for Excel, and these settings would remain. So here we've removed them because we wanted to learn more about formatting. So you could do this in another way. You could do it prior. So this could be size 12 for the start, maybe that the heading and the data is the same. We shall talk about errors in Excel later. So we have something like that. You could select all borders because it is important to have all those as borders. If you are not able to see it properly, I could do it like this and then select all borders, and then you have all these borders or grid lines a bit bolded or added some lines onto them. You could expand this maybe in case you are not able to see it. We could come here and zoom it a little bit like this. This one is now more visible. So, but if we could also come here and say that maybe we have highlighted everything here, you can see how our columns look like. You could come here and say one, there is auto fit column width. This would adjust them automatically to say if you had increased the space on one of these manually, like you see now they are not equal, you could highlight them, come to format, and then say auto column width. So it will try to use as less space as possible, because for your case you will have probably tried to enlarge them. But assuming you want, that is what you wanted, you could come back here to format column width. You can type in a number here. You could say maybe you want to make them very big. You could say 25. When you hit enter, this is how they are. So these are evenly distributed irrespective of whether the data it contains is small or not. So this is very suitable for smaller tables. If you had a huge table, you wouldn't try this. You would want to say auto fit, then you can use as less space as possible. The same applies to cells. You could highlight this, come here on format, and then you say row height. Okay, row height 15.75 is usually the default, but I can take it to 18 and say okay. You can see them increase the size. You could come back here, format, row height, put in 20, and you see them enlarge. So these are some of the important things that you would need to deal with. So for example, there are other simple things that look simple, but maybe you would also need to know them. One is that you cannot click on this box, and no, this is not like Word where you click and the cursor goes somewhere and then you start backspace. Once you are in Excel and you click on the box and you press backspace, assuming you wanted to remove 5 and leave 6, or remove 5 and add 7, when you press backspace everything goes. So for Excel you have got to double click, it will go inside, and then you can either delete or backspace. Here I can use delete and maybe call it a 68. Okay, that is important. 2, it is also important that if you want this to be For example, I wanted maybe to type a word here that says James. Okay, you can see I am moving out of James, and usually we know that the names start with capital letters, so the easiest way, this is the table, that is why it is highlighting like that. We can pick it somewhere here, we can say James. So this will be James, but it means you need to start with a capital letter. I can press Shift and J, and that will be a capital letter. Or I could use what we studied in Word, or maybe you've ever seen it. You can come here, reducing the size, increasing the size. You could as well say that this is capital J. So remember to always start with these things if that is what you want, because the name written like that, I'm sure would not be looking nice even for you, so you would want that changed. So that is what it is here. Don't worry about that, we can let it go, just starting us. So we could look at pasting and copying and cutting. You will need maybe a pen and paper to write down the shortcut keys, because they are very helpful. Instead of all the time scrolling upwards and downwards, you are trying to paste and paste and paste. It doesn't make any sense. So you can get a pen and a piece of paper, and then when you're ready, you play this video again, such that you can list down the shortcut keys that we are going to use. So I hope you have a piece of pen and paper, or maybe you can open your notepad by pressing the Windows button and letter R. Like we said, you can use the same thing or the same functions to open Microsoft Excel and other Office functions and other functions on the Windows platform. Here you could say that notepad, because that is a text editor that comes together with every installation of Windows, and with this you do not have to type .exe, much as there is no problem with typing .exe. You could just say notepad, and then you hit enter, and your text editor or the notepad text editor would open. So you could type the shortcuts here, and that would be quite good, because forever you will have these notes as long as you upload them on your Google Drive. So what we have, one of them is that you could use, first and foremost, you can highlight one by pressing Shift or clicking in the cell that you want to begin highlighting from, and then using arrow keys. I prefer arrow keys because one, they are a little faster and you are more careful than simply using your mouse or the touchpad of your laptop. So you could say, after selecting, we have control button plus the control button plus C. This would be for copying, and like I said, in most cases people tell you that you need to press these buttons at the same time, but sometimes you are not perfect. You do not need to press them at the same time. You can hold down the control button, preferably the one on the left hand side of your keyboard, the left bottom corner, and then press any other letter or character that you desire to do. The same applies to all other functions that need more than one character or one button to be pressed. You do not have to fight to press them at the same time. Just press one at a time and you will be able to access any information you want. So Ctrl C is for copying, Ctrl X is for cutting, Ctrl V is for pasting. Pasting, we shall look at other options of pasting. There are quite many these days due to other programs that are included in. The easiest way is if I click in this cell, if it is the cell that I want, then I can simply say maybe copy. You will see this animation around whatever you have decided to copy. I can click in the cell that I want to paste in, then simply press Ctrl V and I will have done that. So once you say save, then this will stop, or you can simply press the escape button, which is the first button on your keyboard at the top left corner. ESC is escape in full. So the same applies to cutting. The difference is that when you say cut and then you paste it here, it moves from the other cell that is you first highlighted or clicked in, and then it is pasted in the new cell that you have clicked in. By clicking, you are telling the Excel software or package, preferable name would be software, that you want to paste whatever, or you want to do something to that cell that you have selected. And if then it waits for any other commands that you might want to include in, and then it goes ahead and pastes all these values for you. There are other functions. For example, we could open another sheet here. Once we open it, you can see it is the Calibri. So we could copy this. Okay, we come to this sheet here now. We can just expand this a little bit to avoid any other complaints. We could right click, and now these are many options under paste. There is this paste as it is. Okay, there is this for values. This will work when you have a mixture of text and numbers, and you only wanted numbers out of the text. So that way you can use 1, 2, 3 for values. It could be a function that you want to paste a function. Transpose, formatting R, it could also be pasted as a link. So those are a number of options. Others are here. By hovering over the paste special function, you will see many other paste options. There is this with no borders. These are other paste options for links. It could be a picture. So you have many options here. You can see values and source formatting. This means that if you selected values and source formatting here, it is going to bring, for example, this cell reads Calibri size 11, but when I click on James, it reads Book Oldman style. We did not select this, we did not format this cell. All we did was to transfer the formatting of the cells here to another sheet, and this means that this way we could edit the way we want. So we can save this. So we can save just this work here. We can leave it as a, okay, you can say understanding, understanding sales. So here we are. That we've just seen how you can transfer the formatting of one side to the other, and then you maintain your formatting perfectly well. By that you don't have to worry about anything. You could also come here, for example, you could have just values if they are the same, maybe number of attempts, assuming we had one, okay, one, and you wanted to continue with the ones for the next so we could come here. For example, we are writing these and they are the same. We could drag like this, and then we paste all ones in the same location. We have created ones, assuming number of attempts you knew it is going to be one, so that column is filled with only ones. Another thing, you could click in here, we can highlight these, and then another way here in ways of highlighting and transfer of information. I can, for example, highlight this. Maybe it was an error. I try to bring this mouse at the edge, or the cursor at the edge of those cells until that plus sign, or a sign that looks like a cross, comes up, and then I can simply click and hold and then drop. Once we do that, we are able to fill up this, to transfer this. You can see I can transfer it the way it is and drop it here. So that is a nice way to do that, and it is quite interesting that with Excel we can do the drag and drop. Another thing I would want to show you is we have, scrolling down here, we were using what you call autofill. We can use autofill in another way. We could, for example, say 1, 2, 3, assuming you had these numbers and you will have them 1, 2, 3, 4, not that you would want displayed, not necessarily these that are raw numbers, but you cannot keep typing them. So assuming you have 100 or 500 names you are going to enter, and all of a sudden every time you keep on saying 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you could just highlight this and then add on. You can see 4, 5, 6, 7. It already knows that that is how you want it to be done. You could also say that this is 1, this is 3, this is 5, this is 7. Now when we highlight this, then what do we expect? It understands that you are jumping or adding 2 to this, maybe odd numbers, 9, 11, 12, 13, 15, 17, 19, 21, 23, 25, 27, it would be 29, and so on and so forth. So the same applies to even if they were even numbers. It doesn't matter, as long as around 2-3 areas are already showing a certain order of arrangement of this information, then it will automatically continue for you in that way. I also could say here, I can come and say, for example, that this is Friday. Okay, it is Friday. Could say Friday, maybe comma August Friday, August, comma, maybe 01, comma 2021. Okay, so I can copy this, paste it here, and say maybe this is 8th. Now I can highlight this and try to use the drag, and we see what it is calculating for us. You can see making them doubles, but we could activate it differently, that it will tell us what you want. Come here, we can look at the date. The date today is the 10th of August. It is a Tuesday. We can change this one here and we say Tuesday, August, and this is 10th. Can now copy this, copy, paste here, Tuesday. The next, we can look at our calendar here. And we see the next Tuesday will be 17th. We could come here and say 17th. Then we try to see how this will go. Okay, can try it here. So let us look at what we call a flash fill. In most cases, when you are typing in Excel, you see it at work, but you might not know that it exists or that it has a name. We could test it using many things, but the quickest example would be an email. You could have two names in the same box. For example, you have the first name and second name in the same, or first name and last name in the same box, but you only want to pick the last name. You could also use a flash fill like one we are going to have here. We can, for example, start typing the second name. We can say Taremo here. The next name also is Taremo, as you can see, and this third name is also the same, Taremo. When we reach to put a T and TU, you can now see that we have Bode, we have John, and even the other name is not yet complete. But this is what you call a flash fill. When I say enter, it will help me update this with, even if I had more names or more emails down here, all of them would be updated at once. We can try the second one. The first one, you can say Ben. We could say Jones. We can see that by the time, by the fact that we have Ben, it is assuming we are trying to pick the first name before a dot, like Guy dot, Musa dot, James dot, and that is what it is bringing for us. So when we press enter, this is a cool way of selecting at least one name or one word out of whatever words would be here, as long as it is following a certain pattern. This is the second name after a dot, this is the first name before a dot. So that is a pattern that it can easily pick, and then we can use, we can talk more about cells and columns. We can talk about, for example, modifying the column width. in most cases you usually see something like this. As you type your work, these either column headings or the work itself, because it is wrong, you see it disappear inside in another column or cell, or it overlaps it. So there are quite a number of ways you can do that. One way is holding here, it makes that plus sign, and then you can move until you see this name, and you could come back. The disadvantage with this is that you might not know when to stop. You could also come here, assuming it was like this, you could come back here and double click here, and this would automatically fit all your contents using the longest column information here. That is what it will use as this column width. Alternatively, you could choose to say you want something like this, maybe column fit format. We had seen this auto column width, and then it will try to adjust all this width. All these columns can see our serial number is now smaller, and we said this is better because it saves us on the amount of space we would use, especially when it comes to printing. That is how we can save paper. In most cases, when you are dealing with the numbers, you will realize that if a number is not fitting, especially if it is a result of something in a cell and it is not fitting, you are trying to multiply maybe 7,000. Here you have 7,000, and here you also have 7,000. Okay, you are trying to get the multiplication here. Maybe you are saying equals then this multiplied by this. Sorry, this should be F3 multiplied by F3. When you hit enter, this is the answer. But if the column was small, smaller than what this number would be, then in most cases we see X's here. It's just that we had already adjusted this. In most cases we see the X's there, and rather hashes. The dollar sign, we usually see hashes on that particular section like this, and then this would simply mean that the column width is small and the number is too big, it can't fit. So all you need to do is adjust the cell to the column width, and that would be okay. The same applies to rows. Sometimes you might find that this space is small. We had already seen how to increase these spaces. We can just, for purposes of emphasis, we could look at, maybe it is this that you are interested in, the one with the headings. You could just come here and then pull this one downwards, and you will have increased it. Or you would have gone back, come to format, row height 16, and maybe now you make it 24, and that is how you can increase it. Alternatively, you might want to increase all of these at the same time, thus highlighting everything here, coming to this until you see that cursor change. Originality is usually like this. You move, this is for highlighting that particular row, the whole of it. When you come closer to the edge, you can see this is for enlarging, just trying to enlarge this section. But this is what is the cursor we are looking for. You hold and then drag downwards, and all of the cells will be turned into that size in the shortest way possible. There you will have done everything at once. So At times you are dealing with data that is far apart. You could be dealing with data that is far apart, and you would want this data to be closer to each other. In that case, then you would need to use other functions, assuming this was a different subject, same people. Okay, if this was a different subject, same people, but you want to see which number is this person, you could come here, highlight these 2 cells or even these 3 cells. Okay, you would then right click, you can say hide. So when you say hide, if this was let's say English, you could highlight this. You can even see that something is hidden here from A to E. Those are not visible. You could highlight this inclusive of that, and we say unhide, and we shall get our stuff back. So that could be English, and maybe this could be math. Okay, so you want to bring these names closer to maybe these would be, say, registration numbers or identification numbers that you would want to bring closer to your eyes. You are not able to see them properly, but you would want to see them. So by doing so, assuming this was a different column, you would do hide, and now you have names closer to their registration numbers. Then you could confirm that whatever you are entering has got no errors. Another thing we can look at that we had previously gone through is inserting. We said you could right click here and insert a column. You would go to the left, so if you wanted it to be here, then you would use this. It is going to be between this and this. If you want it between this and this, then you highlight a column after what you want. So it will always create a column before itself, or the column is created before what you have highlighted. The same applies to inserting rows. All those two work together, and in the same way to insert. It's the same thing with the deleting. Highlight. By doing this, you can come here. You can see how the cursor changes into a downward arrow. You highlight like this, the whole column from top to bottom is highlighted. Once you delete, you will have deleted. I told you simply deleting like this will leave this information here. In case you didn't want it, you can just come here and say delete cells or delete sheet columns, and then everything will go, and automatically it will shift itself to occupy that space. Otherwise you will find it difficult to play around with delete, because the normal one of highlighting and pressing delete on the keyboard does not work like the way you would expect it to work. So another thing we can look at is what we call merging and text wrapping. In some cases you might want to utilize space, going to the right hand side of your sheet. So instead of using a lot of space, you could, for example, come here. It is like this. Select this column, come here on wrap text, or right click and format cells. You will have many options that you can find under format cells. You have alignment, you can see wrap text, you can see merge cells, you can see shrink fit. We can click on shrink fit, for example. We say okay. Can see those that had extended further into another cell or behind another cell, they were shrunk, and now you can see that they are fitting. But that means some of them have changed format, yet you don't want the format to change. Right click, format cells, the others are here, you can find them here, no problem. We can find font, we can do everything we want under here, under these two, actually all these three, you could do them under format cells. Whether you are trying to say strike through to create a line, and you say okay, can see everything is now having a strike through effect. You could go back to format cells, you remove strike through, you could change your font here and it would be okay. Superscript, subscript, whatever you want to go on top of the other, like H2O, the 2 is down, squared, the 2 is up, they are found here. If you are dealing with other numbers, we could also, you can find borders here. Instead of using here, you could also come here, text fill is here, the fill effect, small colors and stuff like that. We shall see this protection later, and how to use it. We shall see this often when you come to calculations, inserting our own fonts. You can see date and time, inserting our own currency symbols. We shall see all that. So date and time functions, they are all here. You want to be specific that the cell you are going to deal with is date, so the date can pick itself. Time, the same thing. If you want to show the time, alignment is here. You can see text alignment, horizontal, left to right, center, justify, and stuff like that. We were here for wrapping text. You could say okay, we do this one like this, so we can just come here and say wrap text, and what this generally does is that it will chop the name that was exceeding its place here and will put it below the first name, meaning you would need to format these cells. You could increase the row height to maybe 23, press enter, you can see them there, they are still hidden. Or I could okay, we can continue here, row height, I can say 26, and see what I am getting. You can see it here. Or I can come and increase this. It is taking a lot of time. The easiest way, if this was the only sheet I am working on, I would then highlight the cells I want and go back to increasing how big they are. Okay, so this should be able to cover what we are interested in. If this was our sheet, then we would be able to pick our names. You can see them here. So that is word wrapping. We can look at merge and center. It is very common. You have something here, you could say marks, you could say names, you could say maybe this should be say subject, you could say English, we have math, we have SST. So here maybe you could have names. This is John, Jane. You have said 40, 25, and 60. That doesn't matter much. What we are trying to do, we could copy this and paste it here, copy this and paste it here. So this is what we have so far, and you would want, then you can apply all borders here, for example like that. Sorry, it is an outward border only. or borders. You could choose to bold here and maybe this without bolding, but you could as well say whatever is in here is in the font of maybe Bookman, or the style size is 12, so something like this. You can see it is hidden, we can do that. So we might want to add a timetable here, rather at the title of this. Okay, then we could come here, highlight what we want, we say merge and center. There are other options of merging here. This is the most common one, merge and center. Then we can say student max, like that. You can also say all borders, maybe we want it in the center like that. This function here, center, top, middle, bottom. So this is middle. We want it bold, maybe we are saying give it a different color, something like that. So that is one way of merging. Another way is we could have, say, science here, science, and then we add on this one here. But under science we have something like this. We have test 1, and then this was test 2. So we have max here for test 1, and sorry, we have max here for test 1. We could then have max here for test 2. Okay, so this is max for test 2, but science cannot just stay here since it should cover all these. You could do this, merge center, and then so this would mean that science is taking over this, so we have something like this. Okay, so this would also represent merging. We shall use it quite often. And then now we need to extend this to cater for all this. You can see when you click, it will go back to the first cell. Click again, it will merge everything and return to the original formatting. So I can just add on a border here and it will be good to go. So that is cells. The next tutorial will be about create locking cells. We shall talk about locking cells. Shall talk about locking cells, creating a data form, 2 ways that are simple before we tackle anything concerning formulas. So we have here merge and center. That is what we have done. Merges the selected cells into one cell and centers the text. We have what we call merge across, merges the selected cells into one large cell, into larger cells, while keeping each row separate. We are saying that we could have something like this. So we have looked at merging. One would say, then how do I get out of this dilemma in case maybe you had something like total here and you realize you had created your total like this and maybe merged it in that way. You can right click here and say unmerge cell. Then you will return to that cell. We had looked at this merge across. You can see you can go back and merge. Then we can say this would be merge center, what you have done, but you need to select one or more for it to pick from either side. Merge cells, not that particularly it would center them, it's just that by default this is now being centered, but works quite different. So that is merging and unmerging. You come here, merge and center, you could choose left. When you say then you could come and say unmerge, which you've just done, and then you have it like this. So even this one here, you would come and say unmerge, and then it will pick the first row or first cell. That is where it will insert itself. So that is merging. Like I had said, we shall talk about inserting data into cells. We shall create a form. How to create a simple form. We shall create slightly then I will just show you what we can do, how like an advanced data entry form, how it would look like, but we won't create that because it involves programming. Then we shall look at, say, like a barcode, a quick way of creating a barcode. That will be the next information that we are going to look at.